Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I have 6 last-minute Christmas gift ideas using thrifted finds. Gift idea 1 is a hand-painted pot. This gift is perfect for your garden-loving friends. Add a packet of seeds as a little bonus. I'm going to be using the thinner Laurel elements from this mold. I am dusting them with cornstarch first, and then I am rolling the clay into a sausage sort of shape, and then I'm pressing it into the mold with my thumb and using that micro rim to get a clean edge. I'm then going to glue each of the castings onto my pot with a strong wood glue, and you can see that I do actually have to join these and position them, and on my third casting I did have to rip a little bit off, and I'm also casting the smaller bee from the mold as well. Next, I'm going to mix some of Dixie Belle's Sea Spray texture additive with cotton chalk mineral paint. I'm stirring it really well. I did lose some of the footage, sorry guys, but basically I stippled it and dabbed it all over the pot, pretty straightforward. And then I'm coming in with Dixie Belle's Au Naturel Voodoo Gel Stain. I'm applying it, but then I'm using a wet wipe to actually dab and wipe a lot of it off. I want some of that cotton to show through, and I want the peaks of the sea spray to really stand out. Next, I'm going to apply some of the Cactus Silk Mineral Paint with a small artist brush. I'm dabbing it along the edges of the pot. This is to mimic moss, and then I'm using a paper towel and a wet wipe to wipe back the excess. So I just want a hint of green. I think it just looks like a lot more realistic when you do this. So I'm just going to work my way around the pot, adding that cactus paint, wiping it off with the wet wipe to give the appearance of moss. I really hope that you're loving this look. I definitely am, and I think that this would also look really great on an old vase or an old jug. I think this is quite a versatile look that you could apply to a lot of home decor. I'm also going to add some to the details of the castings that we glued down. Again, it's really random. It doesn't matter how you do this. It's up to you how much or how little you add if you're going to give this a go. So remember, if this look isn't exactly for you, you could always use different colored glazes, different colored paint washes or wax to turn your pot into something that fits in with your home decor. This is just one example. Next, I'm going to add the same cotton color to the bottom of the pot and repeat some of the same steps to tie it in. I wanted to age this a little bit more, so I'm coming in with some watered down Tobacco Road Voodoo Gel Stain. I'm adding it and then I'm wiping it off. I just want a hint of the darkness. Again, we're going for a aged finish. I'm then going to spray my pot with Easy Peasy spray wax. I'm doing this for a few reasons. One, it will seal my piece, but it also acts as a way for me to add Dixie Dirt, which is a powder form product that you add to basically, like what it sounds, make it look like your piece is a bit dirty, which I thought went perfect with this pot. And the Easy Peasy spray wax, while it is still wet, is a great foundation for that so that the dirt will stick and not come off. So I'm just going to randomly apply that and then wipe it off with a paper towel, and I'm just going to add it in areas where I feel like dirt will naturally accumulate. I'm using charcoal Dixie Dirt, but it also comes in the color Earth, which has more of a brown tone, and the color Ash, which has a bit more of a grey tone. I picked the charcoal here because I felt it looked a little bit more realistic. Next, I'm also spraying the inside of the pot so that I can add a little bit more dirt and seal the piece. And here's our finished third and final pot. I really love how this turned out. I think it's giving off major French country vibes. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments. Gift idea 2 is a stenciled and stamped tote bag. Customize the design with your friend or family member's names or their favorite things. After washing and ironing, I am placing a piece of cardboard in the tote tote bag itself. This is going to make sure that none of the ink or paint that we're about to use goes through. I'm going to be using IOD's new La Campagne stamp. I know I'm not saying it right, it's the best I can do as an Australian. And I'm going to be using this lovely rooster. I adore this design. I've already used it once and we're going to use it today with IOD's black permanent ink. So I am inking up the rooster. I want to have enough that it's going to be able to soak into the fabric, but not so much that we have any bleeding or smearing. Once I've got enough ink, I'm going to center the design and then very carefully press the rooster down. And once it's down, I'm always going to have one hand on the stamp itself to make sure that it doesn't move, and I'm going to use the other hand to move around the design and make sure that I've got good contact. You can see that I am lifting the stamp up every now and then just to make sure that the design is transferring well. When I'm happy that the image has transferred, I am pulling the stamp away. Next, I'm going to be using the JRV Grain Sack Stripe stencil. Before I can start stenciling, I grabbed the mask that comes in all of your IOD stamps and I've placed it over the top of the rooster, and now you can see here I'm positioning the grain sack stripe down the center, and I'm going to use some masking tape to tape that and the mask in place. I'm then going to mix a little bit of Cactus Silk Mineral Paint with some water. I want to water this down so that it's able to better soak into the fabric and not just sit on top. So I'm using my mister and I'm going to just very carefully mix up the watery paint. And then when I'm happy with that, I am going to be using a JRV stencil brush for this. So I'm dabbing my stencil brush into the watered down paint, dabbing off the excess, and then now I am working the paint into the fabric. Now I found that because of the shape of the stencil, I had better success just sort of pressing my brush down and running it along the lines and making sure that I sort of held some of it in place so it didn't move. And I'm just repeating that same process until I have the entire grain sack stripe done. So something that I did not notice until I pulled the stencil away is that the mask did not cut in between the little rooster's legs. So when I pull the stencil away shortly, you'll see that there is a bit of a gap left between the legs that I am going to have to fix. To fix this, I'm going to remove the mask and I'm going to carefully lay my stencil back down, making sure that I have that lined up properly with the lines that are already there. And then I'm going to lightly go over the top of the lines, and I'm just going to have to be very careful not to actually go up onto the body of the rooster. Unfortunately, I did have to get a little bit on his legs, but I don't think it's that noticeable. When my paint and ink is dry, I will heat set this with an iron on cotton setting, and I will run that over the top of the bag for a few minutes. And here's our finished tote bag. I just love this rooster, and the JRV Grain Sack Stripe stencil made this whole thing come together. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Gift idea 3 is a painted basket with a decoupaged label. Again, you can customize this with your friends or family members' favorite things. Our first project focuses on these two baskets. I thought that they were really sweet. They would be great storage, perhaps in a kitchen, but I wanted to give them a bit of an update. So first of all, I'm going to measure out a label that I'm going to attach. This is drop cloth that I'm just going to cut out to the size that I want. If you're going to try this at home, just think about the proportions of your basket and how big you want your label to be. I'm then trimming out the first label, getting that to the size that I want, and then trimming out the second. And again, I'm just going to have a bit of a play here, working out exactly how big I want it and then going from there. I hope that you guys aren't sick of basket makeovers. I know I not long ago did a video focused on that, so if you haven't seen it, I will make sure that I pop the link for that in the video. But I thought I would just give you guys some more ideas on what you can do with these when you find them in the thrift store. Now that I have my labels ready, I'm going to focus on the basket. I'm going to be dry brushing some of Dixie Belle's Buttercream Chalk Mineral Paint. Dry brushing is when you get a little bit of paint on your brush, you dab off the excess, and then you move around whatever you're painting with a light hand, running your brush over the top. I am now coming in with a paper towel to wipe off any excess. I want this to be really subtle, but you can see here that it makes a big difference. It tones down that orange, and it just really gives this a more of a French country feel. So I'm going to repeat the same process, dry brushing the entire basket. And if maybe this wasn't to your liking, you could use a different color on the basket instead of using this creamy tone that I'm going for. Or if this wasn't enough, you could just get a spray can of paint and paint them that way. I know it is a little bit easier to do that, so that is another option. So I'm repeating the same process on both of the baskets. Once my baskets are dry, I'll seal them both with Rust-Oleum's Clear Matte Sealer. I'm now going to be using JRV's Mini Grain Sack Stencils, and I'm going to be taking a few elements from a few different stencils here. I have Umber Silk Mineral Paint on a small artist brush, and I'm dabbing and stippling my paint onto my drop cloth fabric. I'm holding down my stencil really firmly so that there's less of a chance of that paint bleeding underneath my stencil, and I'm just going to work my way around, making sure that I have enough paint so that you can see the design. So you can see I've swapped from one of the stencils and I'm just grabbing a different element. You can really customize these. You can make them into whatever you like. I've moved on to the second label here, and again, I'm grabbing bits and pieces, just whatever works with the space that I have. I'm then going to pull at the different fibers around the edges, and anywhere that I'm having trouble, I'm using a bit of 220 grit sandpaper to help me distress these. We just want to give them an aged finish, but not too untidy, so you do see that I am going to trim off a few areas where needed. I'm then going to use my heat gun to heat set the paint on the fabric so that when we come in with our water-based product shortly, that we don't get any running or smearing of my paint. My labels still felt a bit too new for my liking, so I'm using some 220 grit sandpaper to lightly distress. To attach our labels, I'm going to be using some of Dixie Belle's Flat Clear Coat. I'm going to coat the back of our drop cloth labels really well, making sure that I have really good coverage and that I've soaked it quite thoroughly. You can use most clear coats for achieving the same result, or Mod Podge. It really is just up to whatever you have available. So I have my back thoroughly coated. I'm going to position it in the center where I want it to go, but that clear coat is not going to hold it straight away. It's going to need some time. So to help hold it in place in the meantime, I'm going to use my hot glue gun, and I'm going to put little dabs of glue on each of the corners to hold it in place. Once I have the glue down and my labels secured in place, I'm going to go around and pull off any of the residual hot glue that's left over, just making sure that that's all out of the way. And then I'm going to go back in with some more flat clear coat. So we're basically sandwiching the label between product. Now, this is going to do a few things. It's going to help it attach to the basket, but it is also going to make that label very sturdy, very well wearing. It is going to just really give it that lovely aged effect as well. Now I'm going to move on to the second label for my second basket. So again, I'm repeating those same steps, coating the back of the label really well, positioning it where I want it to go, and then using the hot glue to help secure it in place initially. You could probably use super glue for this step too, but I have learned through experience that super glue sometimes soaks through the drop cloth and then you can actually see where the super glue is. So if you want to get more of a seamless look, I think probably hot glue is the way to go with if you can. And here are our finished baskets. I'm really happy with how these turned out. This is such an easy way for you to transform tired baskets that you find at the thrift store or that you already have around your home. You can transform them into beautiful French country decor. Let me know what you think of these in the comments. Gift idea 4 is a little keepsake box. You can customize this design with molds or stamps that reflect their taste. Our next project is this plain little wooden box that I picked up at the thrift store for $1. After cleaning, I'm going to give it an even coat of Dixie Belle's Buttercream Chalk Mineral Paint. This is definitely one of my favorite creams. I hope you guys aren't sick of it. Once my paint is completely dry, we're going to be using the new IOD Primitive Mould. I love the elements of this and that they are symmetrical. My first step is to dust the molds with cornstarch. We're going to start off with these little rabbits. I've got a bit of clay and I'm just gently working it into the details, and again using my thumb to push away the excess clay and then turning it over to very gently get that casting out. I'm going to position it where I want it to go and repeat the same process for the second rabbit. I'm then going to cast the small little berries that are between the rabbits on the mold itself. That's a very easy one to cast and get out. And then I'm going to get some of these beautiful greenery pieces. I again love that they're symmetrical. You can create a really balanced design. So I'm going to cast 2 of those. This was a little bit fiddly, so definitely take your time with this one because some of the pieces are really thin. I find that if I just sort of pull the mold away from my casting, that it helps to get it out. I'm also going to cast this little star. I decided to rearrange it and have the star between the rabbits. Next, I'm going to cast the beautiful border that comes with this mold. It is so delicate and gorgeous, and you can see I rolled my clay up into a sausage kind of a shape, and then I just worked it into that mold going really slow. And then I'm going to flex the mold so that I can kind of get it disengaged from the clay, and then I'm going to very carefully pull the casting back up. Now I need to attach my molds. I'm using that same strong wood glue and I'm going to glue all of my pieces down. I'm sure that you've already noticed this, but this beautiful mold is inspired by folk art and it is absolutely gorgeous. Let me know in the comments if you can already envision a project that you have using this mold. I'm going to apply the glue to the box itself for the trim because it is so delicate. I'm then positioning the trim in place and then very carefully pulling off the excess. I'm going to repeat the same process for each of the sides as well because I do need to trim that off so that it will fit nicely. I'll remove any excess glue with a wet wipe, and then after an hour I'm coming in with that buttercream chalk mineral paint. I'm dabbing and stippling the paint on this time because I do want a little bit of texture. Again, I'm being very gentle because my castings are not completely dry, but this is going to minimize that cracking that we talked about before. Once my paint is completely dry, I have already sealed it with Dixie Belle's Gloss Clear Coat, and now I'm coming in with some Au Naturel Voodoo Gel Stain. I'm dabbing and stippling that on, and then I'm going to come back in with a baby wipe and I'm going to wipe back some of the excess. My vision for this was that perhaps it was a very faded blonde wood box. That was the vision I had in my mind, so that's what I'm sort of striving for here. So I'm using a wet wipe to tone back some of that tone, and then I'm going to repeat the same process for each of the sides. Once the Au Naturel is dry, I'm going to come in with Dixie Belle's Grunge Glaze, and I'm dabbing and stippling that on as well, and just repeating that same process of popping it on there and then wiping back the excess. This is going to give it just a bit of a deeper tone, and again, antique it up and give it that vintage feel that I love. Once the glaze is dry, I'm coming in with Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in White and hitting the high points. And here's our finished little keepsake box. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was such a plain little box before, a great blank canvas, and this beautiful new primitive mold has just completely transformed it. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Gift idea 5 are some scented drawer sachets. You can dry your lavender quickly in a dehydrator or an oven. For our next project, I'm going to be using some drop cloth and some more of those little seed designs from the ephemeral melange transfer. I'm trimming off the ones that I don't need, and then I'm going to separate the seed designs apart, and then I'm going to be measuring out how much drop cloth I need for each. We are going to be creating some lavender sachets that you can put in drawers or that you can use on coffee tables in a bowl. I thought that these would go beautifully, so I'm going to trim out however much I need for each one. Each one is a little bit subtly different, so I'm going to have to customize them. To get the size that I need, I've folded over the fabric, and then I'm going to position the transfer over the top and trim off any excess. Originally, I thought that I was going to glue them together and turn them inside out, but then I decided that I liked the rough edges. So you can see I've cut them and split them apart, and I'm just going to work my way through and measure off some of the fabric for each of my seed packets. Now I need to attach my transfer, so I'm going to peel the backing off and position it in the center of my drop cloth fabric, and then I'm going to use the transfer tool that comes with your transfer to rub my design down. You can see I'm holding the fabric as well as the transfer, rubbing over the entire thing, and then I've picked a corner and I'm slowly lifting the backing sheet off. So transfers actually go beautifully on drop cloth. They work really well, so I have never had issues with them adhering. To attach the pieces together, I'm going to put some hot glue on 3 of the sides, leaving an opening up the top, and then I'm going to press the 3 sides together. I'm going to repeat the same process for each of my sachets. So these are going to be decor pieces, so I'm not worried about my transfer at this point. It's not going to be bent, or I don't imagine handled an awful lot, so the transfers are going to be fine on this. If you were worried and you thought it was going to get a lot of wear, you could come in and use stamps instead. I could definitely see these with stamps on them, and I think that these would make great gifts or little decor pieces to put on your coffee table in a bowl, and not only are they cute, they will bring a lovely scent to your room. To fill our little scent sachets, I'm actually going to be using some lavender from our very own garden. My mum actually cut these up for me, and they've been drying for several months now, so it's really easy for me to grab them and just gently break off the little bits and pieces. I'm not sure exactly what they're called, sorry, but just break it apart so that I can actually put them into my little sachet. So you can see I'm breaking them up, and I'm not including the little stems in them. I'm opening up my little little sachet that we created, and I'm emptying out the lavender, and this smelled so beautiful. I just think that this is just going to be a lovely addition to someone's drawers or anywhere in your home really. And once I've got all of the lavender in there that I want, I'm going to use my hot glue gun to seal the bag up. I'm going to be repeating the same process for each of our little scent sachets, and then once I have sealed that all up, I'm going to take some sandpaper and just lightly scuff up the edges to get more of that frayed look. I did decide to add just a light coat of Dixie Belle's flat clear coat over the top of the transfers, just to give them a tiny bit more protection to stop them from cracking. And here are our finished lavender sachets. I love how these turned out. I think they are so sweet, but they are also practical. They'll smell lovely in somebody's drawers, or they could look cute even in this seed box. You could pretend that they are seed packets. You could use them on a tiered stand. I think there are a lot of possibilities with these. Let me know what you think of these in the comments. Our last gift idea is a painted photo frame. You can add an image of significance to the frame, like a photo of you both. For our next project, we're going to be using this simple wooden frame. To begin, I'm going to very carefully remove the backing and the glass, and then I'm going to grab that vintage Laurel Fusion Milk paint again. I've still got some of that left, and I am going to give this frame one thick coat. I'm going to make sure that I've got the best coverage possible, that I've laid it on pretty thick, and then I'm going to grab out that heat gun and speed up that drying process. This is a really easy way to update frames, and it's a great beginner project if you've never used milk paint before. If I didn't want a chippy rustic look, I would have given this a light scuff sand, and I certainly wouldn't be coming in now with the heat gun to speed up the drying process. Next, I'm going to be cutting out some art paper to use with our transfers. So I'm grabbing the backing from the frame, and I'm going to very carefully trace around it so that I have the right size paper for my insert. I'm then going to be using the seed catalogue design again, and I'm going to select one of the smaller designs to work with. There's so many beautiful colours in this transfer. I've selected this one because I feel like those lovely purple tones go beautifully with the vintage Laurel, but you can see here that the transfer is bigger than the paper that we have for our insert, so I'm going to trim off that bottom text. I'm also going to trim this text off here, but I'm going to save that and we will reapply that in a slightly different spot. I'm also going to take off the word Minnesota down the bottom as well. So this isn't going to fit perfectly. There is going to be elements that you can't see perfectly when it's in the frame, but that's okay. Our main focus really is those beautiful florals. So once I have my design basically how I want, I'm going to peel the backing off and we're going to start to transfer this image. I'm going to very carefully position it over my paper and then rub and burnish the design down, lifting the plastic as I go. Once I have my main design down, I can grab those elements that we removed and I can layer them over the top. So don't feel like you have to keep your transfers in the exact same way they come. I'm now grabbing some 220 grit sandpaper and I'm going to come in and sand off all of that chippy goodness that we created by speeding up the drying process. And then I'm going to seal the entire frame with Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in Clear. Once I've applied my wax and I have buffed it with a microfiber cloth, it's time to put our glass back in. I'm going to give it a light clean and then carefully position it back in. Then we can grab our lovely artwork that we created with the seed catalogue. I'm going to sit it inside, making sure I've got it the way that I want, and then put the backing on carefully. And here's our finished artwork. I love how this turned out. It was a super easy project, a great way to create some home decor for your home. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I hope that you enjoyed today's video collection, and if you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.